Being a billionaire is great. You get to have the luxury of never working a day in your life again. You can have fancy houses and cars, you get to have a lot of political power, and most importantly, you get the ability to buy the Simpsons Legos. With this amount of wealth, it's expected that people within that 1% will have a much different lifestyle than the average person. I mean, what else are you going to do with your money when you have everything? Well, isn't it obvious? Is to make sure that you keep that wealth for the next generation. You want to make sure your kids won't have a single bit of money problems, so you put the bastards through private school. But you don't just keep them there. No, you make it so that they can't interact with anybody outside of that damn school, so that they will then talk amongst themselves and become completely disconnected from the outside world. Well, what do we have when we have these libsters interact with a relatively normal person? You get Shomin Sample. Shomin Sample could have worked very well. If you stretch it enough, you could even compare it to a really good show, Futurama. And I'm not pulling this out of my ass either. If you boil it down, both are about an average person being taken away from their common, normal life to a more unique life. And then they'll have to get accustomed to their new lifestyle while telling their peers about their past. And while the executions are different, some plot points between the two shows have similarities. But my main problem with Shomin Sample is that the characters never really grow as people. Shit will just reset. Because of this, I just do not care what's going on in the episodes. There are shows that do this often, like The Simpsons and to an extent Always Sunny, but the reason why it works in those shows and not Shomin Sample is because those shows are funny. I'm somebody that'll give leeway to content if it's funny, but Shomin Sample is not. But also, the plots in those shows will usually go all over the place in concept. Characters will go from attempting to get welfare to being addicted to crack. And while at the end of the episode everything gets put back to normal, it'll still affect plot points later on, or hell was just entertaining to sit through. In Shomin shit, two characters will feud, but after a good bit, one will apologize, and all will be well in the world. Until the last possible moment, it'll just reset and they begin fighting again. This doesn't just happen once, it happens like every single time. Oh yeah, the premise of Shomin Sample. This guy, Kimito, gets kidnapped from his normal everyday boring school and gets put into a prestigious all-girls school. Like, I'm talking billionaires put their kids through this shit. But it turns out this school has an issue, and Kimito is there for a reason. You see, this school is a complete secret to the outside world. It's heavily guarded to keep it that way as well. None of the students have ever interacted with functioning members of society. So after the students graduate and go into the real world, they end up in terrible positions because of how sheltered they were during their early, more impressionable years. They get some sort of culture shock and don't really know how to interact with normal people. Kimito serves to help fix that problem. Actually, two. The second problem is that since this is an all-girls school, no guys are allowed, not a single one, not even the staff. So Kimito is there to expose everyone to common life and the existence of another gender. And since Kimito is considered the most average person in the world due to his height, class grades, actions, etc., he was basically perfect. So Shomin Sample is about the hijinks that Kimito will get into with some of his classmates. Aika, Raiko, Hakoa, and Karen. This is the gang. So I'm going to talk about each character in depth and some problems I have with how they were executed. And since I've already talked a bit about Kimito, I might as well just start with him. I've already mentioned how he's the most average guy in the world, but there's another reason as to why this school picked this liberal. He's gay. Gay! Not. Alright, okay. So the school didn't want some rando walking around dating everybody in sight. So him being gay, removes that worry. But what's stupid about this is that not only is Kimito straight, they only provide one example of Kimito's gayness. And it doesn't make any goddamn sense if you think about it for longer than 0.5 of a second. He spends most of his time around men. Like his friends? Are you kidding me? So to compensate for their incompetence, a childhood friend of Kimito's, Eri, was asked a couple questions about him, and one of those had to do with his sexuality. So she just went in for the full troll. And I respect a good troll, you know what I'm saying? Like this one, and this one, and this one. So Eri, I gotta say, good job. But when first confronted about this, Kimito's like, that's wrong, what? And then the principal's like, are you sure? Cause if you're not gay, then we'll send you to a secluded area and then cut your penis off and trap you there forever. Okay, so he has to keep this facade on or else it's all over. This type of plot point is fine. You think it would actually change up how the students would act around him, dynamics and whatnot. Like they wouldn't try to imagine a future with this guy, but you'd be wrong. All of the main gang still want to marry him. And since Kimito quite literally is not able to reciprocate, he just has to deal with it. What about Kimito as a character? He's fine, the most tolerable, but that's not saying much. It's like saying, oh, the best Brickleberry episode is season 2, episode 8. Wow, that means nothing. Kimito essentially plays the straight man, in which he will realistically react to all the stupid nonsense around him. And he plays it well, too. usually. He keeps the gang on track with whatever the hell the daily antic is, so, good job in that regard. There will be times where he is a horn dog, and that's annoying, but it doesn't happen all the time. Moments in Shomin Sample also show how Kimito can make a good father. He has a really good understanding on how to cook food, and even knows how to handle dumbass kids. It's not like Kimito has any outstanding moments, however. This just leaves him more forgettable than anything. The closest example to a standout moment is the fact that if somebody accuses him of not being gay, he just shows wrestling videos awkwardly. That's about it for him. Shomin Sample is more about Kimito interacting with the people in the school, so some of the things mentioned about him I feel would fit better when talking about other people. But by himself, it's just okay. Actually, before we move on to another member of the gang, I'm going to talk about Kimito's friend Eri. She is damn near useless. In the manga, she has a bigger role in like the latter half, but in the anime, no. After sending Kimito away for him to stay, we see minuscule bits of Eri in her personal life. She's a talented voice actor. There was even an episode segment in which Kimito was playing a game that Eri was a part of, so that's pretty cool. But most of the time we see her, she's just pissed on how she's unable to consistently communicate with Kimito and asks stupid shit like, where did he go? You saw him get taken away and only now are you worried? The final scene that we see in this show, like after the credits, is Eri screaming about how she can't find Kimito. This is clearly setting up for some sort of season 2, as in the manga, Eri goes to the school for a bit. But nah, this isn't The Simpsons, okay? You can't just get renewed for another season. I'm pretty sure she has less screen time than the intro, which is about 1 minute and 30 seconds. Maybe if Eri had more consistent appearances, I'd care more. Hell, maybe an episode that focused on her. That would probably work well. It's clear that Eri likes being around Kimito. She cares. So show that she's genuinely worried about Kimito's well-being instead of screaming in the fields like an asshole. Alright, Aika. Aika is the first person Kimito becomes friends with, and I put that loosely, and you'll see why in a second. Aika's character kind of sucks. She has promise, and her entire character arc has to do with her making friends. You see, as a wee lad, Aika got really sick, and after waking up, she started to act differently than everybody else, which caused her to feel really isolated from the rest of her classmates. She feels really fucking lonely and wants to fix that. And I think that is a good idea to give her a simple to understand backstory. The problem is Aika herself. She'll say things like, oh, I'm super fucking lonely, I just want friends. But then when she gets a friend, aka Kimito, she just wants to use him to get more friends. Since Kimito being a commoner is a rarity in this school, having knowledge of common life will give you a rep boost. She doesn't ever learn to be cool with the couple really quality friends, she only wants quantity. There is one thing that makes their friendship seem somewhat realistic. It's that Kimito will just fuck with Aika. He'll tell her to put on a green man suit, lie and say that she has superpowers, and will troll her into Gangnam styling. What makes me not want to root for Aika to achieve her goal is that she'll say shit like, when I become popular, I'll still remember you, in the most condescending way possible. Like Kimito and her create a whole club so she can learn about Kimito's common antics. Oh yeah, Aika as a person never changes. From start to finish, she'll be a complete impulsive dickhead. The fact that Kimito still tries damnedest to help Aika is genuinely a fucking miracle. Her arc itself was also executed terribly. Aika doesn't really make any attempts to befriend people. After she told Kimito that she really wants to get some pals, she purposefully skips the welcome party for Kimito and says shit like, eating alone? The best! In the small amount of time she's being confronted by somebody, she'll just run away. Oh yeah, also her goal will go from 0% complete to a good like 10% complete to 100% complete. She first befriends Kimito, then sort of befriends the rest of the gang, but also that's a stretch, to befriending everybody in the school. Hell, at first, she didn't even want other people in her commoner club. It's not satisfying, it's not even a gradual climb to 100, and she's the first person that we get to know about on a deeper level. Now this shit gets worse. After she befriends everybody and becomes a household name, we never ever see her new friends after that event. And also, she still tries to become popular after she already became popular. It seems like they sort of gave up and said, well, fuck, we have nothing else to do with you. Let's just, hit the reset button. Even during a class project, she's by her fucking self again. That was your life goal, dude. This isn't something that you can just toss away and say, well, time for next week's adventure, like it's an animated sitcom. Except usually in animated sitcoms, there's continuity. All right, so we're at a track record of one okay character and one bad character. And Eri's somewhere in there, but like, she's not important, so, piss off. The second person in Kimito's squad is Raiko. Raiko is the perfect student. She's the most popular, has perfect grades, and is extremely nice to pretty much everybody. She also really likes Kimito. Did I mention that this was a harem? There are some events where Aika pulls some stupid shit, but you could just play it off as dumbassery. My main problem with Raiko is actually her relationship with Aika. It makes sense for them to have some sort of rivalry or conflict. conflict. The two are essentially polar opposites. But the reason why the conflict starts is honest to God the stupidest shit ever. Okay, so in this episode, Aiko wants to make friends, yada yada. So Kimito and her come up with this party to invite everybody, while also giving everybody a personal cell phone so the classmates can message each other. During this time, Reiko was getting a little nervous about how much time Kimito and Aiko were spending together. And during a tea party, Reiko's friends were talking about the two and how they might be dating. In response, Reiko lashes out and says, "Be quiet." This causes her friend to think Reiko hates her. Before we continue, holy shit, this is already stupid. I get that the people in the school haven't had any real conflict somehow, but getting told to be quiet isn't even that bad. Reiko didn't even tell her to shut up. Oh yeah, and also, they're fighting over a dude who everybody thinks is gay. Anyways, Reiko feels extreme guilt over this, like she's bedridden, it's that bad. So Kimito gets involved and tells Aika about this. Aika surprisingly feels bad enough to use that phone party thing to help Reiko apologize to everyone, even though just saying, "Hey man, I don't hate you," just really grinds my gears when you gossip about people dating. It's dumb. Reiko ends up hosting that phone party and this plan worked. She apologized and all is well. Except once Kimito tells Reiko that this party was actually Aika's idea, Reiko runs off to Kimito's room and beats the shit out of her. Her being jealous of Aika is actually an interesting flaw of Reiko. This is the only time where she's been challenged in something, and while that something is how close of a friend you are to Kimito, it still works. I just wish this conflict didn't continue for the rest of the series, or it properly ended and didn't get revived. In television and whatnot, I don't mind conflict gags. They can actually be quite funny if played correctly. I guess a couple examples, Ash versus Gary and Homer versus Flanders. When it comes to Ash and Gary, it's funny because of how much Gary will just fuck with Ash, even though we rarely see him throughout Kanto and Johto. And with Homer and Flanders, old Homer J will be a complete dickhead to Ned, leaving beehives in his mailbox, consistently stealing his stuff. In a Trails of Horror segment, Homer shot a zombie Flanders without hesitation and didn't even realize he was a zombie, and Flanders will just put on a big smile and deal with it. This also makes the situations when Flanders is genuinely pissed, it's so much harder, because that means you fucked up hard, okay? Now you may say, Reiko doesn't get mad at anybody else, so her getting pissed at Aika is basically the same thing as Homer and Flanders. Well, not really. For starters, Flanders' rage is usually a combination of bottled feelings just exploding. This conflict was Reiko getting mad over a rumor. They also resolved this conflict like twice, but at the end of those episodes, they go back to fighting as like a joke. The two examples of non-changing status quo when the status quo should have been changed makes me think that these characters aren't meant to change or grow. But this is a series about adapting to new surroundings and learning. You know, at least when Barney became sober, he was sober for a couple of seasons. And when Brian fucking died, he stayed dead for the rest of that episode. And then the episode after that. It's not even like there aren't status quo changes. You got the phones. That's it. But how did the school get the phones? Well, Hakuwa is the Rick Sanchez of the group because of her blue hair, but she's also the most socially incompetent. This is because she was sheltered for her whole life, more so than the rest of the students. Hakuwa was entrusted to work on this fucking formula that all the scientists want. And what is this formula? I don't know, they didn't say. That makes me sort of like irate. The show gives importance to this formula. Hakuwa spends, her entire life working on the damn thing, and we're not even told what the fucking purpose of it is. We don't need to see the formula itself. That's a bit much. I know, I understand that this isn't Futurama, but I don't give a shit because for all I know, it could be a formula on how to make nicotine more addicting. Once Hakuwa meets Kimito, she actually opens up more to only him, but still. The relationship between these two characters is akin to the likes of a father-daughter relationship. It's sort of sweet seeing Kimito act like a dad. He'll teach Hakuwa how to make food, tell simple jokes, and play simple games. It's a nice change of pace from everybody else's stupid, unfunny shit. Speaking of stupid, unfunny shit, everybody else gets the wrong impression of Kimito and Hakuwa, especially the rest of the gang. We'll talk about her in due time because she pisses me off the most, but they all assume that Kimito is some creepazoid fuckernaut. This isn't Class of '09. Because of her antics, she'll take up the most of Kimito's attention. The gang will take this in the dumbest way possible. And while something like this shows more of Reiko's insecurity, any reasonable person would be like, oh, he's just making sure she doesn't pull a Bart Simpson skateboarding to Krusty Burger challenge. Hey Matt, you only got like 3 years left. Can you give us like a teaser or something? Also, can I be in the movie? I want to be in the Springfield riots. I'm not actually making a simple Simpsons reference with that. A gag that Hakuwa has is that whenever she has a brain blast, she'll take off her clothes, which is terrible, and what a surprise, it's not funny. When this happens, Kimito will go into full panic mode and attempt to fix the situation, but everybody misinterprets this as him being weird, which the fuck? The other members of the gang being senile is no surprise, but all the maids also think something's going on. Every single student has a maid to help them with like random nonsense, which could be used for some funny epic moments, but not much is done other than that they sometimes don't do their job. 9 times out of 10, they're just normal. There was a scene where Kimito and Hakuwa were drinking the soda, and they were like, holy shit. So Miyuki walks in and is like, what the hell are you guys doing? We were expecting a very important phone call and not a single one of you picked up. Then afterwards, the maids all gathered together and were talking about how much progress they made in getting Hakuwa together with Kimito, which is none. Remember those phones? Hakuwa is the reason why those students have those phones. She created them actually. Most of the phones given are just sample leftovers. So you know what that means. Actually, speaking of her technology capabilities, they don't do shit with them. You essentially have a Pandora's box of ideas with endless possibilities. But no, we have to do Gangnam Style in a maid cafe plot. That shit is mandatory. And while you can argue that Hakuwa creating all this crazy shit may destroy some of the more grounded world building, no. In the finale, one of the characters, a main character might I add, fights a fucking Metal Gear and says how she was in some sort of like hyperbolic time chamber. So Shomin Sample attempting to keep this world mostly realistic isn't really a priority. This makes Hakuwa really boring. This like blue Pop-Tart just flails around like a baby. The phones were a good start, shows that she can create something. And even if we don't have a single idea on what that formula is, it at least tells us that she is smart as shit. It's not even like the gang needs to go to space or something. You could probably make it so that the creations are like somewhat connected to the main plot, sort of like in Pokemon X and Y with Clement. Even if his inventions fail 99% of the time, it's still more than whatever the hell Hakuwa does. Doesn't even have to make technical sense. If it's funny, I'll look past small plot holes. But what's worse than being boring? Being annoying, and being akin to the likes of Jared Fogle. Karen is the last member of the gang I'd like to talk about, and I put her last because she sucks. What makes Karen special is that she is a samurai and always has a katana by her side. Personality-wise, she has a very tough outer shell, usually afraid to show true emotions, you know? She'll call shit like dumb and lame. This combined with her being extremely aggressive, she's just a loose cannon. During her introduction, she almost kills Kimito because she encountered a bee and swung her sword everywhere like an asshole and was too prideful to be like, whoops, a bee existed. So the way to go with her character is to show a more softer side, which they do. Some episodes show her wanting stuff like bunny plushies or more casual clothing. Interestingly enough, there's a part in another episode where it's shown that she has a dollhouse and can even sew. So we're already in a good direction with her as a character. Let's see how they ruin it. We all remember the blue Pop-Tart, right? She really likes her. Like when Hakuwa has a brain blast, she starts taking photos. Jesus Christ, you dumb motherfucking Jared, kill your guy. Like, it's in this weird point in Uncanny Valley where it's obviously not a good thing that Karen does these shit, but since nobody ever acknowledges it in any meaningful way or at all, it just makes me like really uncomfortable. You can have characters do terrible things. My favorite show is Always Sunny. This is a show where the main cast or the gang will do terrible things damn near every episode. One of the deeds committed by both Dennis and Dee are not so different than from what Karen is damn near close to actually committing. Hell, it almost happened in the 3rd episode of the whole show, underage drinking and national concern. Dee says something that is so egregious that it's funny, because even Dee knows what she's doing is bad, and Caitlin Olsen's delivery totally adds to that funny factor. If you want a more recent example, the gang gets new wheels, which probably has my favorite ending in the whole show, but before I tell you about the ending, here are the terrible acts that the Always Sunny gang commits in just this episode alone. Mac and Charlie beat up kids because they stole their bike. Frank tries to get a high schooler laid, and Dee does that deed, while also not knowing that he was in high school. And Dennis gets a Range Rover from the 1800s. So the reason why this ending is hilarious, right, is because everybody knows that they fucked up hard, like they are on the run from the police, but they all get into Dennis's Range Rover and just sing some Rick Astley. It's so absurd. Like, these guys committed terrible crimes, but since they're in the Range Rover, all is well in the world. In Shomin Sample, everybody will just have a poker face every single time Karen will do something similar. The effect just isn't the same. Karen will even attempt to call out Kimito for doing something slightly odd, and this grinds my gears because, like, do you hear yourself? You do worse on the daily. Since I've already talked about Sunny once, I'm just gonna, why not do it 15 seconds later? You know, who's gonna hurt? There was an episode, Mac and Dennis moved to the suburbs, where Dennis ate a dog. It was by accident, but it did happen. And in a later episode, Wolf Cola, a public relations nightmare, Dennis is around a dog and is clearly nervous and ends up defending the consumption of dogs. This plays into his insecurity and clear shame about past actions. Nobody other than Mac even knew he ate the damn dog. Hell, Mac put the dog inside of his mac and cheese. But since Dennis is digging his own grave, it's funny. If Shomin Sample pulled something like Sunny and went further into the insanity, like an attempted reputation kill of Kimito, that could be pretty funny. You can even put that episode in the direction of nobody believing Karen, because she's basically their version of like the Unabomber. High chance no one would take her seriously. This could cause her to actually reassess herself and end up attempting to make a real change. And even though she's a part of the gang, it's not like she really gives a shit about anybody except Kimito and Hakuwa. That's 50%. For some odd reason, she stays with the group. It's really dumb. Again, remember with her introduction, when she's swooshing her sword around doing cool sword techniques such as wind attacks and earthquakes. She cuts up everybody's clothing by accident, and right before she kills Kimito, his pants fall off. Okay, this causes her to believe that she lost this fight, and Kimito accidentally gets her to think that all commoners are strong as shit. So in turn, Karen just calls Kimito her master. Okay, Kimito keeps his head on straight, so it's not like he uses her for anything bad. In fact, the only time Kimito uses his quote-unquote powers against Karen is to make sure she doesn't fucking kill him. Karen is the worst out of the main gang. That's not saying much though, and I mainly feel it's because they don't take her to a correct type of extreme. She'll just do a terrible thing and everybody turns the other cheek. So that's the main cast, but there's like one last person I want to talk about. Kimito's personal maid, Miyuki. Miyuki's iconic gag is that she hates Kimito and wants to cut off his penis. There was a post-credit scene in one of the episodes where it shows that Miyuki has some sort of feelings for Kimito, but since it doesn't go anywhere, just like the rest of this fucking show, it's just forgotten. Other than that, she's pretty professional, clearly the most competent maid on campus. Okay, now that you understand the gist of all the characters, I'm going to talk about some episode plot points and whatnot. So remember how Karen is like the guy from Subway and how she's stupid? So it gets even dumber. There was an episode where the gang tried to become friends with Hakuwa, as she doesn't even give them the time of day. And Karen is like, oh shit, Kimito and Hakuwa are able to talk about nonsense. Let's try to dress up as him. Maybe Hakuwa will talk to me then. She even attempts to make a joke while sort of calling out Kimito when he's not in the room to defend himself. Great job, Karen. And I get that this is supposed to be a haha, like, what? She's actually on the flight logs, not Kimito. But this joke sucks because it doesn't go anywhere. If it was a good show like Brickleberry, I think it would have been an interesting plot point for the gang to try to incriminate Kimito after Karen makes this joke. As at this point, they've already talked about how Kimito is hanging out with Hakuwa too much and how weird it is, so they're already lost in their own stupid thoughts. It's a shitty thing to do, but that's the point. Hell, it could even blow up in their face as Kimito could find out about their plan before it gets into action. He'd then get rightfully pissed, and then it would start this like mini arc where the gang has to regain his trust for attempting such a terrible thing. Maybe I'm just watching too much Sunny. Or as James Corden puts it, always. It's even hard to believe that Kimito is friends with these guys. Poor bastard can't even chill with someone. Not one person wants to be regular pals. They all treat him so oddly so they can like attempt to marry him or something. In one episode, Raiko overhears Kimito on a phone call conversation saying that he misses men and is homesick. I just have one moment. What do you mean by that, Kimito? Are you just like slurring up a storm in the Fortnite squad's lobby? Jesus Christ. So the gang dresses up as men and tries to remove Kimito's homesickness. Now this is a sweet thing to do, but I wonder why he misses home. It's almost like he was stripped away from there. But also, like I said a bit ago, nobody wants to be regular pals. Friends are important, and Kimito doesn't really have any here. He has nobody to like troll about with. Since if he does as much as tell somebody to be quiet, they'll shit their pants or beat the fuck out of him. Aika is the closest thing to an actual friend, but even then, during the first episode, Kimito tells Aika, hey listen, if you tell me about life at this school, I can tell you about common life. And Aika responds with, Raiko's better. Kimito then says how he would prefer Aika to be his guide, as she seems a lot more real than the rest of the students. Aika doesn't have this like weird elite aura around her, unlike Raiko. So Aika's response to this is to fucking sock him in the brain. There's also an episode where they do Gangnam Style. It's really interesting, believe me. Actually, it's not Gangnam Style. There was a comedian in Japan called Dandy Sakano who does this little jig called Gets, and it's featured in Shomin Sample. I thought it was just a parody of Gangnam Style, but no, it's a real thing. I respect a good reference, even if I didn't understand it. and it doesn't really change my criticisms about this episode. It's just something I want to mention. I'm still gonna call it Gangnam Style though, because I think that's funnier. So this episode is clearly trying to be a satire on trends and whatnot, but it stinks because it sort of just gets spread to the whole school. It's not even funny. You know, it should have gone to the route of this Simpsons episode, yeah? Or at least the part where the trend gets really big, then overused, then everybody gets bored of it, yet some people will still use this gets meme, then the people get mad at each other who are still using the meme, and then Family Guy chicken fight. This could create an actual conflict within the school because of how stupid people are. It could be in the background of a good chunk of the series. Shit like this happens in real life too. During my middle school days, I got ragged on a little bit for playing Minecraft still, since at the time it went out of fashion for my peers. But no, it cuts to another plot point as soon as Kimito sees that all the classmates are in like this Psy outfit. It doesn't help that this segment of the episode just drags on, dude. It takes like 6 minutes before Aika actually learns this dance move, and then 15 seconds later, Kimito bumps into Miyuki and does this stupid trope of, "Whoops, I didn't mean to pull a Weinstein, I swear," which takes up another 2.5 minutes. Keep in mind, an episode is only 23 minutes long, and you have to cut out about 3 for the intro and outro, which that's not bad. You know, you got 20 minutes for a full story. That's definitely possible, but not here. Because in Shomin Sample, they'll do this thing where instead of having one 20-minute episode, it's more like 2 10-minute episode segments that are kind of just squished together. It's not like how in animated sitcoms where they'll swap between like an A and a B plot. It's just they'll do the A plot and then the B plot. You know what I'm saying? But since shit just drags on like, yikes, I need a distraction. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Conway Twitty. An episode is just not able to reach its full potential. Now I'd like to talk about the two-parters. With 12 episodes in the anime, there are two two-parters. The first one being about an amusement park based off of common life, aka a city, where they go to McDonald's, an arcade, a coffee shop, and even a clothing store. And freaking epic antics occur, such as the McDonald's brony and ordering Cola Zero. You fucking kidding me? Those zero sugar drinks are shit. Drink regular cola with regular sugar, you feel God. The important part of the Shomin Land amusement park is that this is where Aika befriends the entire class. When everybody was in an arcade, some of the classmates were struggling while playing DDR, so Aika just jumps in and shows all these losers how to really play. After this, everybody wants to talk to Aika. This is grand, she's finally popular, that damn goal can get completed now. But later on, Aika wants to send everybody a message explaining why she was socially absent from the general population. And out of everybody, Raiko helps her out. The two talk like normal people. It seems like a friendship could exist because of this. Or at least this stupid rivalry can end. This whole ass scene plays out. It's fine. It's a fine scene. Yeah. And her goal is essentially completed. This is a fine way of finishing off her arc. Hell, Shomin Land was pretty much built for this to happen. But like I said with the many things in the show, it sort of just happens and then is never mentioned again. Like the Commoner Club could have grown 30 times that day. But no. Instead of Aika being promoted to some sort of teacher, the episode goes into the direction of the Commoner Club possibly being disbanded. The goal of the club was to get Aika popular, and that's completed, so why continue? Now, this is interesting. It's sort of a twist. I would have never thought of that plot point, but it can work. It makes a lot of sense too. Aika would be too busy hanging out with her new pals to go to the Commoner Club. If only they stuck with it. God, they play this sad, emotional music, but then the scene immediately after immediately ruins it. It's a situation where Kimito is in a sauna, and Aika walks in like, "My pals are coming in soon, you gotta hide!" And hijinks ensue, and Kimito almost drowns. And then Aika gets caught giving Kimito CPR, but they think they're kissing. Ew, grossy! Ew! So then there's a rumor going around that the two are dating, but it's more extreme than the first time around. But then, they all go back to school, and that's it, status quo. What was the point of this whole everything? Everything gets dropped. Aika getting friends. Aika possibly becoming friends with Raiko. The idea of the Commoner Club going away. There is, and I shit you not, one thing that stays. Karen's clothes.
But Owen, you didn't talk about that.
Yeah, I'm aware. In the Shomin Land, the class visit a Kmart.
Fuck you, Owen.
Karen really likes this piece of casual clothing, and because of her stubbornness and that tough outer shell, she doesn't buy it. But Kimito makes her buy it. And while this isn't the least important part of Shomin Sample, it has to do with Karen becoming less tough. This is the dumbest thing that they kept for those future episodes. Okay, so imagine the episode of The Simpsons where Maude dies, right? Iconic season 11 episode. Okay, but now what if the only thing they kept in that Simpsons continuity was that the Simpsons family still had the bumper cars? from the couch gag. Like, Maud is still kicking in the next episode. Oh wait, I know why they kept it. It's so Kimito can go ape shit. It's really unfortunate that the writers didn't keep damn near anything that happened in Shomin Land. It was like the one place where the shit that mattered happened. But no, Karen, the least developed member of the gang, has to keep her stupid fucking clothes. Their second attempt at a two-parter is the finale. In the first part, it's revealed that Raiko will be in an arranged marriage and will be going away to get married. She obviously doesn't want this, but since her family is very high class, she has to. And the rest of the gang is sad and shit, you know? But they try to pull this scene saying, we don't know what to do in the Commoner Club anymore. Raiko made all the decisions. No, the fuck she did not. I checked, okay? She called like maybe one shot. It was when the gang was becoming cafe maids. And even then, with how the conversation was going, anybody else could have suggested that. I don't know why you're asking me. Dude, you're the one from Common Life. Then we see Life Without Raiko and it's dumb. They show moments like Aika being alone during book reading. Why is Aika alone? Shomin Sample Land happened. McFly, anybody home? Everybody treating Karen like a terrorist. It's because she is. In her introduction, she almost killed people. She has a katana on her at all times. Hakuwa is by herself. Raiko and Hakuwa aren't really friends. I don't really think they talk to each other at all. And at the Commoner Club, Kimito's having a stroke because he can't get everybody together. Raiko isn't that integral to the Commoner Club, because what has she done really? You could argue that the vibes or some shit would be different. That's a completely reasonable thing to say. Oh wait, not really. Half the group don't really give a damn about whatever Raiko's doing. Some don't even give her the time of day. But to say that Raiko is the glue keeping this gang together is nonsense. You know, instead of getting rid of Raiko, get rid of Kimito. I'm not saying he has to be removed entirely, but just have him gone for a bit. It would make these scenes actually work, because the one thing in common with all four of these people is that they are friends with Kimito. Out of everybody in the school, he's the closest person to each member of the gang. Anyway, so the gang decide to crash that meeting that Raiko's family is having to discuss the marriage, which leads into the final episode, which is the best Shomin Sample episode. But that isn't saying much, because even then you have to watch the rest of the series to understand the finale, so it's like not even worth it. There's an entire tone shift this time too, a shit ton of action, which was not present anywhere else in the series. Bombings and shit, you know, Metal Gears and whatnot. Karen's sword techniques are used at full display here. She visits a hyperbolic time chamber in her spare time. What the fuck, this isn't even like a tonal shift. It's like not even from the same show. What stinks about this finale is that the last scene after they save Raiko from their marriage or whatever, they all go back to school and everybody does their gags. Hakuwa does the brain blast. Karen does whatever the fuck and doesn't get arrested somehow. Kimito attempts to fix it, and Raiko and Aika start fighting again. This is the last time we see these characters, unless you read the manga, which we'll get to in a minute. So the series ending off with these catchphrases is real dumb, because even with this huge event that just went down, with fights, nothing in the long run changed even a bit. You know how I didn't mention Raiko's brother? Like at all? Other than providing transportation to the meeting building and screaming, he is fucking useless. One of the 3 interactions Kimito has with this guy is about exchanging emails, and he goes apeshit because Kimito has a modern phone with a touchscreen. Sorry, Kimito isn't from the fucking medieval times, Christ. All of this boils down to a finale that, while epic, isn't worth watching because A, you have to get the needed context by watching the rest of the show, but B, since those first 10 episodes don't really do much in making the situation of Raiko being taken away seem like a real problem, like yeah, it sucks, but only Kimito and maybe Aika would realistically care, so why should you? C, since it takes the show in such a direction that isn't grounded unlike those first 10 episodes, which are relatively grounded, some people would just end up saying, this is not what I signed up for at all, what the hell happened? You know, TV shows have done this before, to grand results as well. The Simpsons. Need I say more? Since The Simpsons has gone on since 1989, 1987 if you count those Tracy Ullman shorts, it makes sense that eventually some crazy shit would happen to the iconic characters. And what happens every year since season 2? The Treehouse of Horrors, which take the normally grounded Simpsons characters and place them in situations that are not possible ever. Zombies, vampires, British, 3D. These episodes are some of the most hyped in each Simpsons season because of how out of the norm they are from the rest of the series. But since Shomin Sample still wants to have their foot in the possible pool, but also not, these things like mechas just being thrown in for like a gag and then are never seen again leaves me sort of puzzled. This would have been fine for a Family Guy gag, because usually there's another element of surprise, like a character will explode. But since Shomin Sample still has that one foot in the normal zone, you can't do that. Oh yeah, the last thing, it isn't funny. Now that I've talked about the anime and all of its glory, where else is there to go? While making this video, I ended up reading chunks of the manga to see what differences there were between the two adaptations. And obviously with a manga, you have a lot more time to develop characters than you would in a 12-episode anime. But it turns out that the anime is worse than I thought. Most of the development is still executed pretty poorly in the manga, it's just like slightly better. You know, let me get something clear. There are little differences between this stupid ass book and this stupid ass TV show. Like most of the scenes are damn near the same with little changes. Like instead of Aika becoming popular because of her DDR skills, it's because of her Street Fighter skills. You know, actually speaking of Street Fighter, the references in the manga are way more prevalent. More JoJo shit, specific references to the Capcom company, and the fucking Dragon Ball over 9,000 joke. Twice. The manga itself also transitions between plot points way more naturally, so instead of the Family Guy 7 minutes of bullshit, it's more Simpsons 7 minutes of fun. The anime will do this weird ass thing where they'll combine separate parts of the manga that were originally not connected and then like stitch them together like a weird Frankenstein's monster situation. It's nothing too horrendous, but when it comes to the anime, it adds on to those more unnatural plot transitions. Because of this removing around of parts, a lot is also recontextualized. Like, did you know that Karen has a younger sister? So instead of the gang breaking into Karen's room for no reason like they're fucking Kramer, it's her sister. Around that arranged marriage part, the gang doesn't even say anything related to Raiko makes all the Commoner Club decisions. They don't beat around the bush either. Kimito knows straight away that they need to save Raiko from this marriage and fucking stands his ground. There isn't any scene where it's life without Raiko. And you know what? At the end of that episode, the gang doesn't do their gags. It ends more properly. That phone call that Kimito makes where he's talking about how much he misses men, in the anime, we just see Raiko listen to his stupid tirade. But in the manga, we get the full context. He's calling a good friend and accidentally goes on that rant. And Kimito's friend also ends up blocking him, which while it isn't a chuckle moment, it did give me some sort of pity nose exhale. This phone call actually ends up leading to his friends talking about it at his school, which then piques Eri's interest and makes her actually fucking do something. Hell, Eri actually interacts with Aika at some point, you know, before she visits the school. It doesn't even feature that plot point where the gang dresses like men. Remember how Aika became a loner right after the Shomin Land 2-parter? Well, in the manga, it's actually mentioned that because of that kissing rumor, she went back into Lonerville. It's still a dumb reason why she stopped communicating with everybody, but at least it's said. The manga is also just less dumb. There are more scenes of the students inside and out of Seiken. I don't think I actually said the school's name. Up until this point, it's Seiken Academy. There are more scenes of the students inside and out of Seiken interacting amongst themselves. It feels a lot more real. Aika will even attempt to troll kindergartners, and she becomes friends with Karen. Yeah, there's an entire part of the manga which focuses on Aika and Karen becoming real quality friends. Since they're both lonely, it only makes sense for them to pair up at some point. They work together on this personal project of theirs, and while they end up getting in a stupid argument, they laugh it off and stay friends. This is how it should have worked with Raiko. Third time's the charm, I guess. The last thing I want to mention about the manga is Eri. I've said it a couple times throughout this video, but in the manga, Eri is actually relevant. She's annoying though, you know, over 40 chapters of buildup, only for her to be a real piece of shit. And she even talks in the third person, which is just, oh my, that's grand. I love it when that happens. It's totally not annoying at all. But since the stuff with Eri happens way after that arranged marriage arc, I don't think it's fair to criticize the anime for not including that. And the anime was what I mainly wanted to talk about for this video. At the start, I said Shomin Sample could have worked, but looking at it more, you would have to change so much that it wouldn't even be the same show. It isn't funny, the characters are annoying, uninteresting, and will either not develop at all or regress that development, and the show doesn't utilize the time in the episodes for anything to feel satisfying. Giving Shomin Sample another season couldn't have helped it either, as from what I've seen from the manga, it's more or less just the same dumb shit.
Guys, check this shit out. Guys, I found it. I know when season 2 is gonna be. I found this video.
Hey guys, this is Gonshell.
Fuck, it's a robot. God damn it.
We think it will likely be released by the end of the year 2022
really?
at the latest.
Oh, you're 2 years off. Fucking.
Good night, America.
Alright, everybody, welcome to social media news. The only news outlet with not enough budget for suit. Today we have a very pressing story. Local dunderhead Quentin has been missing for the past 7 days, and we don't know where the hell he went. He could be dead. We're getting new intel about the Quentin situation. Jamie, pull it up.
Yeah, that's what you get, you piece of shit. You don't smash a bottle on me.
Yeah, Quentin's dead now. Bye-bye, Quentin. Don't forget to
No.
subscribe, devil. Eat my short.
This is a note that Quentin had supposedly written before going missing. These are my last words or something. I don't know, might as well write them down. When being captured for no reason, he kept rambling about sub-percentages and this red button. I don't know what he's going on about. He did say this name, Thorn McPorn, and how it's all his fault for everything, and that he's next, whatever that means. So watch out, Thorn. It's all over for me, though. Go!
Next news story, Let's Player Markiplier killed someone? I don't fucking know.
Let's just get this out of the way. My name is Don Penguiano.